So hey everyone, how's it going today? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this video. Today we're going to be creating a team of AI autonomous agents who are going to be replacing a rudimentary marketing department in a small company. This is going to be just like summoning a team of experts in basically anything you want, who can collaborate, who can talk to each other, and who can interact with the real world through some of the tools that we're going to make available for them. It's going to be just like having a part of your company completely run by AI agents. I'm going to show you a workflow on how to create your own AI autonomous agents so that you can go from the idea to the actual implementation of your crew using CrewAI, how to monitor them to automate parts of your business and your workflow. In this particular example, we're going to be automating the marketing team of an Instagram page. We're going to have a team comprised by a research market analyst, a visual artist, a market strategist, etc., and all of them working together so that we can create our own content calendar, okay? And by the end of this video, you will have a deeper understanding of CrewAI, since this video builds on top of the introductory course that I published a few days ago. So without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Alright, so before anything else, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about CrewAI, which is the framework that we're going to be using to create this team of AI autonomous agents. So CrewAI basically is a framework that allows you to create this that you see right here. So you're going to be here, you're going to be asking a question to your AI crew. You're going to give it an input, and your AI crew is going to be comprised of several autonomous agents, each of which is going to be an expert in a different thing, and each of which is going to have a different task assigned to it. And they are going to work together to complete all of those tasks. They're going to communicate with each other, and they're going to use tools and access the internet and do all sorts of things. Just like if you had your entire team of marketing, for example, or software development working for you. And all of them are going to do that by themselves. They're going to communicate, and then by the end, they're going to give you the result of whatever they created. So in this case, for example, you can be asking them for an application, and then you will have some project manager, maybe you will have some senior developer, you will have some designer, etc. And by the end, they will have worked together to create your entire product. In this case, we're going to be creating a crew that is a marketing strategy crew for Instagram. So we're going to have probably an SEO strategist, a copywriter, a visual artist, etc. So that is what we're going to be building, and that is why this is so cool and revolutionary. Okay, so first of all, I want you to create your virtual environment for Python. Now, in short, this is a place where all of your dependencies are going to live, and your Python version as well, so you don't have any version conflicts or package conflicts or something like that. In order to do that, I am going to be using Conda, but feel free to use whichever virtual environment system you want. And if you do not have Conda installed, or you do not know how to install it, there's a link in the description with instructions on how to do that. Now, in order to create my Conda environment, I'm going to do conda create -- name, then the name of my Conda environment, and then just assign the Python that I'm going to be using, the Python version. Hit enter. Now, I had already created it, so I'm not going to be recreating it. But once it has been created, all you have to do to activate it is to conda activate and then the name that you had given to your environment up here, like that. Okay. Now, once you do that, if everything went smoothly, you will see somewhere in your terminal a sign that your Conda environment is activated. And once you do that, what I want you to do is to install CrewAI. So we're going to do pip install CrewAI. And if you notice, we haven't actually yet created a project folder for our project. And that is normal because in this case, we're going to be using the CrewAI CLI to start off and to initialize our project. In other words, we're going to be using the command that CLI allows us to use in order to create all of the folder structure for us instead of us creating it ourselves. And in order to do that, once you have installed CrewAI, you're going to do CrewAI create, and we're just going to name our directory. It's going to be called, in my case, Instagram. And you can see that it has created this new folder called Instagram right here. As you can see, here you have it, Instagram, and with all of these files that you can use to start off your crew, right? So that is how to use the CLI. By the way, CLI stands for Command Line Interface, and all you have to do is open it in code, in VS Code, and we can start actually coding this. Okay, so let me just tour you around the new directory that was created. So here, this is the directory that was created, Instagram, like this, right there. And inside of here, we have a source Instagram directory. This is the name of our crew. Inside of it, we have a config directory with our agents and our tasks. In this case, the agents are precisely the agents that we had defined in this is where we're going to put the agents that we have defined right here. And we have the tasks, which is where we're going to put the tasks that we have right here. If you remember the previous video, we were creating the tasks and the agents directly from the functions themselves. But here it is pretty convenient to have all of the descriptions inside a YAML file to just load them. And it just makes everything more efficient. Now you have this configuration here. You also have a crew.py file, which is the one that is going to contain your actual crew. You have your crew base class, which is going to contain everything you need. Here you have several methods. Some of them are agents. If they are agents, you're going to decorate them with the decorator agent. Here, up here, you have a couple of properties, which are the locations of your configuration files. Your crew framework is going to take care of loading this YAML file, so you don't have to worry about it. Then you have the tasks methods that are the ones that are going to return the tasks that your agents are going to perform. And then finally, you have your crew method, which is going to programmatically initialize all of the agents and all of your tasks that were defined using the decorators right here. Okay. So that is how this works. And then by the end, of course, you have your main.py, which will take your inputs and initialize your crew with the inputs. Okay, so this is something else that we will have to be modifying in a little bit. So that is the tour. You also have a directory for tests, .env, git ignore, and then a readme that I invite you to read, because it does contain some important information, particularly about how to install this entire framework. So as you can see, let's actually just follow it real quick. We have Instagram crew right here. Let me just show you. So this is the readme.md. So we have the Instagram crew introduction, and then as you can see, it uses Poetry as a package manager for Python. So we're going to be needing to create to pip install Poetry. We're going to have to pip install Poetry log, Poetry install to install all the dependencies, Poetry run in order to actually run our main method right here. So there you go. There was a problem with my Conda environment. That's okay, because I have it active in the terminal and here. So I'm just going to fix that in a moment. But let's now actually start planning our crew, okay? Okay, so now that we have our environment set up, let's actually start planning our crew that we're going to build, okay? Because remember, in CrewAI, we have several things that we have to prepare before actually starting to code. And these things are the following. We have to create a set of tasks that our crew is going to perform. We're going to have to create a set of agents that are going to perform the tasks, and that we're going to define the set of tools that our agents are going to require in order to perform our tasks, okay? And usually the first step to do everything of this is to have a very clear idea of what your inputs are and what your outputs are for the entire crew, okay? So that's the first step. So in my case, we have defined that the input that we're going to get is the page description of my Instagram account and the topic of the week. And the output is the report for the content strategy of the week. Okay. Now, going from this idea to the actual entire planning does require a little bit of time. And I actually have a shortcut that I want to share with you. That is what I recommend that you do. In my case, I recommend that you go to CrewAI.com and you click right here on Chat with our docs. Right here, you're going to be able to access the GPT from CrewAI. And what this does is basically it allows you to chat with a GPT that has access to the entire documentation of CrewAI and also to its code base. So what you would probably want to do is to brainstorm your idea at this assistant, and then the assistant will return to you everything you need from the tasks to the agents and the tools. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to record myself while I'm just brainstorming the idea, and at the same time I am presenting it to you. And I am going to record that and just send that to CrewAI, and in return I will get everything I need from the tasks to the agents and the tools from the assistant. Okay. So, and also before I do that, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to this guy, Braden Wong, who created this super cool extension called Whispering, which is completely free. You only need to add your API key from OpenAI, and it will use the Whisper API so that you can dictate directly your voice into ChatGPT, just like you would do in the mobile application. Okay, so that's great. So big shout out to Braden Wong. So I'm going to record myself and I'm going to explain to you the entire thing. So I'm going to click here. And now I am going to brainstorm my crew idea. Okay, so I would like to have a crew that takes as input the page description of my Instagram account, the topic of the week, and as output, I will get the content strategy for the week. This content strategy should contain the hashtags, the title, and the publishing time for each publication for each day. The hashtags, the title, and the publishing time should come from some research that my agents are going to perform. So my agents should be able to perform some research about the latest trends in my niche, in the topic of the week, etc., and then incorporate that into the calendar. Inside of this document, I should also have the description or the caption of the post, which is supposed to be SEO optimized, which means that it would be good for Google and for Instagram. And it should also contain the trending hashtags. So it should also use the information received from the market research. And apart from this, I would also like to get the image descriptions. Now, this is not the captions that I told you before. This is the image descriptions of the images that I'm going to be posting, because I am going to take these descriptions that should be very detailed and very vivid and put them into an AI model that is going to be either DALL-E 3 or Stable Diffusion. And this diffusion model is going to generate the image given the description that one of my agents give to me. And after that, I want everything to be compiled into a single document that is going to contain all of the information that I mentioned. And this would be like my marketing team for Instagram in this crew. Okay. Now, please give me all of that in a couple of YAML files, because I am going to need all of this configuration in YAML files so that I can put it into my code base seamlessly. These YAML files, I'm going to give you examples of what they look like, but they should be one agents.yaml and one tasks.yaml. So now I stop recording, and it's going to take a few seconds before it actually completes the transcription. There you go. So now here is my brainstorming session. And now I can give it the example of the YAML files that I'm going to want. So in my case, I want the agents.yaml file, example, so that it knows what the YAML file should look like. And remember that the example, I got it from Visual Code. And here I have the agents.yaml. Just going to copy everything and go back to Google Chrome. I'm going to paste it right here. And then I'm going to do the same with tasks.yaml example. There you go. Just going to paste it like this. Copy all of this. Just paste it here. And now this assistant will tell me everything that I need to know in order to create my crew. Okay. Now it will not always give you the final version of the crew, so you might have to tweak it a little bit. But as you can see, this is already a huge step, and it's going to be saving you a ton of time. Because in reality, when you're creating a crew, or any piece of software for that matter, one of the most time-consuming parts of the entire process is going from the idea to the actual design of the software or of the framework that you're going to be creating. Okay, so in this case, just by brainstorming our idea to this GPT, we got that we have 4 agents, which is pretty much the same thing as I had right here. And we got that we have 4 tasks. So it didn't quite get the last task, which would be the compile content task, but it got pretty close. So that's going to get you way closer to the actual final plan of your entire crew. Now let's wait a moment and see if it gives me the YAML files as well, because I gave the example of the YAML files here so that it could follow my examples. And let's see what it gets. We have the image description creation for the tasks. It's going pretty good. It didn't give me the YAML files. Let's ask, can you give me the YAML files too? There it is. So here's the YAML file for my agents. So market researcher, I have my role, my goal, and my backstory as well. There you go. It's going to do the same thing with tasks. So there you go. That's how you bootstrap your entire project using the CLI and also their GPT. All right, so now it is time to actually start loading our configuration. Remember that I had already generated all of my agents. I had to tweak them a little bit because they were not exactly as I required them. So I'm just going to copy the agents that I have already created. I'm going to post them right here. So as you can see, I have a market researcher. I had defined a role for it. I have a goal for it and a backstory. Remember that these properties have to be very detailed because they're going to go into the prompt. And remember that the prompt has to be very detailed for your agents to perform correctly. I mean, for any AI LLM assistant to perform correctly. We're going to do the same thing with the tasks. I'm just going to copy them right here. So as you can see, I have my 5 tasks, which are market research, content strategy, visual content creation, copywriting, and report final content strategy. Actually, there is a problem with the naming here. I'm just going to remove the task keyword right here. There you go. I have my tasks and my agents saved correctly. Now I can actually run them and initialize them inside of my crew class right here. Okay, so now that we have loaded everything that we need to load, we're going to actually start initializing our agents, okay? In order to do that, you're going to want to come right here to CrewAI.py. And in this file, we're going to start defining our agents and our tasks. The first thing we're going to do is the agents. So I'm just going to erase this right here. I'm going to start them with coding them with you. So the first thing that we're going to need is the agent decorator. This agent decorator is going to tell our CrewAI framework that this method right here is going to return an agent. And here I'm just going to define a new method, and I'm going to name it the name of my agent. I'm going to say that it returns an agent. Let's return an instance of an agent. And this one right here, remember that in the previous video where I showed you how to create your agent like this, we initialized the agent like this directly, like setting the role, setting the description, setting the goal, the backstory, etc. Here, since we already have the goal, the role, and the backstory in the YAML file, which is right here, all we have to do is load it in the config property, in the config parameter like this. And we're going to tap into the agent's configuration object and open the market researcher key, which is going to be this one right here. And here we're going to be loading the role, the goal, and the backstory. Now, there is something to consider right here because it might look a little counterintuitive, is that here we are tapping into the market researcher key of something that looks like a string. So are we trying to index this key from a string? And I do understand that this is quite counterintuitive. What is actually going on behind the scenes is that once we call the self-agents-config property right here, which was initially a string, once we call it right here, it has already become a key value per object. And that is happening behind the scenes inside the CrewBase decorator, okay? So just by adding this decorator right here, it is taking the properties of the YAML files right here, and it is loading them. It is loading the YAML files, as you can see right here, so that when it gets to the actual method that you have right here, this property is already a key value per object, and it is no longer a string with the path to your configuration file. Okay, so that's how it goes. And now we can actually just add the tools. And in my case, I have not defined any tools yet, so I'm going to leave this empty. I'm going to set the verbo setting to true so that we can see in the logs what is actually thinking our agent. Okay, so there we go. And there we go. So that is the first agent. Now for the next agents, I'm just going to copy and paste them from right here that I have on the side. And there we go. So we have loaded all of our agents. We have the content strategist, the visual creator, and the copywriter. And all of them are pretty much the same. You load the configuration, and there you go. There is only this single one parameter that I changed for the visual creator, because remember that our visual creator is this guy right here, our visual artist. And its own, all of its purpose in life is to create the description of the image of my Instagram post. He doesn't really require needs to communicate with the other agents. Now remember that all the agents have by default the possibility to talk to other agents, to delegate tasks, or to ask questions. In my case, the visual artist didn't really, he's the visual artist. He cannot really delegate the task of painting an image because he is the expert in that. And he doesn't really require any additional research to create the image. So I just disabled the delegation right here so that it does not have the possibility of talking to its other teammates when it's his time to perform his task. That just shuts him up, because in my testing, I found that if they have the possibility of talking to their friends, to their colleagues, they are going to talk more than you wanted to. So if it's just a one-shot task, you should probably set the allow delegation to false, and also monitor your crew to see if someone is becoming too talkative, because every time they talk, they're making a call to the API, and that can become quite expensive if for no reason. All right. So there's the visual creator and the copywriter, and there we go. Those are our agents. Perfect. So what you want to do right now is, now that we have our agents, we're going to want to create our tasks. So we can delete these tasks and we can just initialize them from right here. I'm just going to create the first task with you so that you see what's actually going on. But just remember, it's pretty much the same thing as with the agents. I am going to take the same names from the keys in my configuration file, and this is going to return a task. Now, we did not import either the task or the agent types right here, but we're importing them from CrewAI. All right, so just keep that in mind. We're importing everything from CrewAI up here. All right. Now that we are in this one, we're going to be returning a task, and I'm going to say that I'm going to return a task. And just like before, we're going to, instead of loading the task description, the expected outcome, etc., we're going to set it as a configuration file. So just like before, self.tasksconfig, which is this object right here. Remember, here it looks as a string, but once it gets to this method, it has already become a key value per object. So here we're going to open the market research key, and inside of here as well, we're going to set the agent who is going to perform this task. And in our case, it's going to be the market researcher, which we have initialized up here. That's why it is important to create the agents first. And then for this example as well, we're going to create an output file. And this is basically just going to say, here you're going to set the path to where you want this task to save its output. So some tasks, probably not all of them, it might be a good idea to save the outcome in a file. In our case, this task is the market research task, and it is quite an important task, and you want to have the report from the market research in a document. So that's why it's probably a good idea to create a market research.md. Saving it as MD because these language models by default return a string. So we're going to be returning pure text and saving it as a markdown file. So that's for the first task. I'm going to copy and paste the other ones to not bore you with all the repetitive task writing. But here, as you can see, we have the content strategy task, just like before. We select the agent, which is the content strategist, and the key from the task's configuration. The same thing for visual content creation task, our configuration and our agent. Same thing for copywriting. And the final one, just same thing as well, but we are also adding an output file. So in the end, we're going to have two files, which are the market research and the final report with the content strategy, which is the one that's supposed to contain all of the days, the daily schedule, the posting times, the descriptions, etc. Okay. And then by the end, you just have this right here. I am not going to change this because this is pretty much exactly how we need it. If you wanted to have a manager to be a language model who assigns the tasks, you could set the process to hierarchical right here. So you would have to uncomment this parameter right here. But for now, this is going programmatically very smoothly. And we're going to be doing a sequential one, a sequential process, I mean. And here, just like I said before, the agents are going to be automatically loaded because we have added the agent decorator from self.agents. And this, of course, is happening behind the scenes thanks to our crew decorator, which is initializing all of our agents and our tasks behind the scenes for us. So now when you call self.agents, they are already defined. And then the process, just like we said, sequential. Okay. All right, amazing. You have successfully completed the creation of all of the tasks and of all of your agents. Now it is time to actually start creating the tools that your agents are going to need in order to complete their tasks, okay? In our case, if you remember correctly, we had designed a first toolset that one of our agents was going to require. This toolset is the search toolset, and it contains 3 tools. It contains search the internet, which will allow our agent to search the internet with Google. It's basically just a wrapper around an API that returns Google results. We're going to have a tool that's going to allow the agent to search Instagram, which is basically the same thing as search the internet, but with a site colon instagram.com in front of the query, okay? And finally, we're going to have an open page tool, which is going to allow our agent to open the contents of the retrieved results from the other two tools, okay? So that's what we're going to do. And just to be clear that we know what's actually going on, remember that a tool in an agent framework is basically just a function or a method of a class that our agent is able to call, okay? So our agent is going to be able to add an input to our function, execute it, and read the output and reincorporate it into its prompt. This is essentially how a React agent works. So a React agent, what it does is basically it uses the language model to think, then it chooses a tool that it's going to use. It performs the action, which is the calling the function, reads the output, and reincorporates the observation as context to its own language model call. So next time it will know what the function returned. That is essentially what we're doing. And that is why you need to use a language model that allows function calling. So far we have, for example, OpenAI models which allow function calling, Claude, which very recently enabled function calling from the Anthropic guys. So there you go. So that is what we're going to be doing. So let's start actually by building these tools. All right, so to create these tools, we're going to be requiring this API from serper.dev. In case you're not familiar with it, let me just show you around what it actually does. Serper.dev is essentially a wrapper around Google search, okay? And you get 2,500 free queries, so you can test it without spending any money. I don't remember putting my credit card details in it, so that should be, yeah, no credit card required. So there you go. Once you create it, you're going to be able to create your API key, and we're going to be using that in a moment. And you're going to be able to create calls that will return this kind of results, okay? So in this example, we're going to be querying Apple Incorporated just to showcase, and you can see that the results contain several objects. And in our case, the one that we're interested in is the organic one, which is essentially just the organic results from Google. And we're going to be tapping into this object, and we're going to be loading the first 5 results for this tool. Okay, so let's create the function that will call this API. And we have an example here by going to code. And here we have an example using Python. So here they are actually using HTTP client. I am going to be using requests myself. But this should be good. So now let's actually copy this and incorporate it into our code. What we're going to do, remember that when we initialized our project, that automatically created this folder right here that's called tools. And inside of it, we have custom tool with just some example of how a tool would look like. I am going to delete this, and I'm actually going to rename my file. I'm going to call it search. And in here, I am going to create a class that is going to be called search tools, like this. And in here, the first thing that I'm going to create is the method that is going to return the search results. So search, I'm going to add a query, and then I am also going to add a limit of, we said that we want 5 results, right? So right here is probably where we're going to start needing the code that we copied from their documentation dashboard. So we're going to be importing, I'm not going to be using HTTP client, I'm going to be using requests. And so we're going to want to first initialize the URL, which is going to be API, nope, it's not API, it is Google serper.dev, like this. Then we're going to pass in the payload, and the payload in our case is JSON and JSON object, and the query is going to be just our query right here. And then the maximum number of results is going to be number and limit. And this one I get it from going to just modifying the number of results, and you can see that it is num20. So there you go, number, that becomes 20. Then we have the headers, and we have the content type application.json, and here, right here, we have the API key, which I am very conveniently leaking for you. So I'm actually going to call it from OS. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to import OS. And then we're going to actually just call this API. And in order to do that, I'm going to use requests. And I'm going to say request. I'm going to send a post request to the URL, hand in the headers, the data payload. And there we go. Now, remember that I told you that we were going to be tapping into the organic object inside of it. So I'm going to say that the results are going to be equal to response.json. And inside of it, remember that we're going to be tapping into organic. Because, nope, not organic results, just organic. Because that is what we have right here in the example. There we go. And now, once we have that, we can actually just return a huge string with all of the results in it. And this string is going to be just an empty array first when we start off. And then for each one of the results, we're going to append, first of all, the result title. Then in the second line, the result snippet, and then in the third line, the result, not URL, but link. And there we go. And here we're implementing title, link, and the snippet, which is going to contain some information about our result that our agent knows if it wants to open this page or not. So there we go, that is for the string, and then let's just return an f string, search results for query, and then we're just going to join everything in one single string. There we go. So now that we have created our search method, this is the one that we're going to using inside of our tools, okay? So actually, let me just add my API key right here. So serper API key, and I'm going to go right here, copy my API key, going to paste it right here. There we go. And then now let's just finish off this two tools that we're going to require. So remember that the first tool is going to be search the internet, right? This tool is going to be this one right here. And in order to do that, we're going to, first of all, initialize it with a tool decorator. And this one takes the name of the tool. So we're going to say search internet. And the tool decorator actually comes from langchain. So we're going to import it from langchain.tools. We're going to import tool. There you go. And this decorator is going to decorate our function, which is going to be search internet. And it is going to take, first of all, the query, which is going to be a string. It's going to take the Well, now it's not going to take the limit because we're always going to be returning 5. So it's going to be returning this and return a string. And this is very important. You should always add a docstring for your tools, because your agent is going to be able to read this docstring, and it's going to be able to decide based on this description whether or not to use this tool for a given task. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to say use this tool to search the internet for information. This tool returns 5 results from Google search. There we go. Okay, so that is our docstring. So now our agent is going to be able to read this and say, okay, so I have to research some information. I want to research Google, so I'm going to use this tool right here. And that is also why it is very important to also mention the type of the parameter, because that is also information for your agent. And in here, we're going to just be returning search tools dot search, and we're going to be returning the search from this query right here, because we're calling this other method that we defined down here. And let's do the same thing for search Instagram. We're going to create a new tool that is going to be search Instagram. We're going to define search Instagram. It's also just going to take a query, and it outputs a query as well. I'll say use this tool to search Instagram. This tool returns 5 results from Instagram pages. There we go. And this one, just like before, it is going to return the search and the query and the limit of 5. But in order to limit the search to only Instagram results, we just do the neat little trick from Google. I mean, of course, I repeat, this is not a trick from this API. In Google, whenever you want to search for something in a specific site, all you have to do is say site, and then just type in the domain that you want. So in my case, it's instagram.com. And then all of the results from Google are going to come from this domain. And now there we go. How about we just test these tools? Okay, so in order to test all of this, what we're going to do is basically just call the functions directly from our file. Because remember, the tools are essentially just functions. So what I'm going to do is just going to say if name equals main. I'm going to print how to make a cake for each one of them. So here I'm using my search tools, search internet method to look for how to make a cake, and same thing for Instagram. And we should see the results. However, before doing that, I'm going to have to from .tnv import load.tnv. I'm going to execute that because this function, remember that it allows me to have access to my secrets in .tnv. And we're going to require the Serper API key for this to work. So now that that is done, we can click on save and execute this. And let's see the results here. So here's my call, search results for how to make a cake. And here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 results. Each of them has the title, the snippet, and the link that we mentioned before. And then the same thing for Instagram. Here, search results for site Instagram, how to make a cake. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, only 4 results for Instagram. Also the title, the snippet, and the link. Pretty good. So now, before actually finishing the rest of the tests, I would like to finish creating another tool, which is the open page tool, because remember, we're supposed to have tools that are able to search the web but also a tool that is able to open the results. So let's just do that. We're going to create one that is called Open Web Page, like this. We're going to define Open Web Page. Let's call it Open Page actually. Define Open Page. It takes one URL as a string, remember. Then use this tool to open a web page and get the content. And here we have, actually for this one, we're going to be using a loader from langchain. We have used this loader before in the previous video of chat with a website. Basically, it just returns all of the H tags and all of the P tags of a page. So let's import that one. So from langchain, we're going to be tapping into langchain community because this is a third-party integration. We're going to go to document loaders. We're going to import web base loader, like that. And this is very simple to use. All you have to do is initialize your loader with the URL that is going to be passed right here. And then once we have that, we just have to return the results from the loader, like this. And this should be it. Let's actually just test that one as well. In order to test it, we're going to do exactly the same as we did before. Going to come down here and do if name equals main, and we're going to try to open, we're going to try to open Instagram. Well, definitely not. That's probably not going to work. We're going to try to open Python. Let's see how that works. There we go. We have the contents of the Python page. Seems to be correctly. All right. There we go. Working correctly. Our tools are working correctly now. All that we have to do is add them to our crew. Okay, so let's do that right now. And in order to add these tools to our agent, it's very easy. All we have to do is, like we did in the previous video, we're going to go to crew.py and identify the agent where we want to add those tools. Because remember, in our diagram, we have that the market researcher is going to have access to these 3 tools, okay? Feel free to experiment adding the tools to other agents or maybe even using other providers for these tools. And once we have that, I am just going to add right here, I'm going to import from Instagram.tools.search. Of course, I am adding it from Instagram because that is the name of my directory. And then I'm going to go down here and just import search tools, search internet, search Instagram, and open page. Now, once that is saved, I actually did want to mention something that is quite useful, is that if you have several tasks, like here we have 5 tasks, the results from the first task are probably going to be lost by the end of the entire process. That is normal. It is just as though the agent in charge of making this had communicated the results to the next agent, and then that agent is going to communicate the results to the next agent all the way till the final task. You're probably going to have lost the findings from the first task. That is why it is important that if you have a task for which you're interested in reading the results from that task, for example, the market research one, or the copywriting one, or the visual creating descriptions, you probably want to save those outputs in a file. And that is very easily done. All you have to do is go to the task that you're interested in creating a file for, and then as a parameter, you add the name of the file where you want that results to be stored. In my case, just going to name it marketresearch.md because it's going to be a markdown file, and this goes in the parameter output file. And there you go. Now we are almost ready to run this. We just have to add our inputs and that should be it. Okay, so in order to run your crew, remember you have to pass in some inputs, right? Remember that we had defined that we required the page description for your Instagram page and then the topic of the week. So we're going to pass those inputs to our crew. In order to do that, we go back to VS Code and right here we go to main.py. Here you have a function that was created automatically with our CLI. And here you have an inputs dictionary. And you also have this Instagram crew class that is being imported. We're calling the static method crew, and then we're calling kickoff on whatever this returns. And just to be sure that you get what is going on behind the scenes here, this one, we're importing it from the crew that we just created, which is this one right here. We're calling the crew method, which is returning an object of crew. And this object has a kickoff method that basically just executes our crew. So that is why we have crew and then kickoff, and then we just pass in the inputs. And these inputs are the ones who are going to be interpolated with whichever variables we specified in our prompts. Now, where are our prompts? Our prompts are basically just the config files that we have right here. In my case, remember that we said that we were going to have these two variables. So here it is, for me, I just added this to the first and main task, which is the market research. So we have the description of the Instagram account for which you're doing the research is, then I just added some markup tags, then the Instagram page description, which can be as long as the user wants, and then find the most relevant topics, hashtags, etc. And this is the topic for the current week, topic of the week between markdown. This is not necessary, just that some language models work better when you add these tags. And then I did also pass in the current date because the language model doesn't know by default what day is today. So I'm just telling it the current date. And in order to do that, we're going to go back here, and whatever we pass in here as our inputs is going to be interpolated. It's going to be replaced with the value here of these variables. So let's do that. Remember that the first one we have is current date. And in order to set that one, I'm going to set it right here. And for the current date, I'm going to be just importing that from datetime. I'm going to say datetime now. The second one is going to be Instagram page description. Now enter the page description. Oh, this is supposed to be an input because we're supposed to ask the user for this. Enter the page description here. Then we have, lastly, the topic of the week. And here we have it. Whoops. Topic of the week. And this one is going to be enter the topic of the week here. And there we go. Now, just so you remember what's going on here, I'm just going to open the terminal again. And if we go back here to readme.md, remember that in order to run all of this, we had to first install Poetry, log Poetry install, and then we can run Poetry run Instagram. And in case you're not familiar with how Poetry runs, it's just a package manager for Python, which allows you to define some scripts that can be run using Poetry run and then the name of your script. In those scripts are defined right here in pyproject.toml, and they're here tool.poetry.scripts. And you can see that the script called Instagram actually goes to instagram.main, which is right here, instagram.main, and then from main it executes the function run, which is the one that we had just finished tweaking. So there you go. And so let's actually just follow the steps from this README file. It says that first we have to install Poetry. I have already installed it, so that's probably going to take a bit longer for you. Remember that in order to do this, you have to be inside of your virtual environment that we created at the beginning of the video. And after we do this, we're going to do poetry lock, which is following these instructions right here. And then we're going to do poetry install. And once that's done, just poetry run Instagram. So let's do that. That probably takes a few seconds. Then we'll just do poetry install. Again, to you, it might take a little bit longer because I have already installed all of this, just updating some of the dependencies. And now we can do poetry run Instagram, which is the script that I mentioned before. And there you go. Remember to add your .env, remember to add your API keys to .env. I have OpenAI. And I did specify the latest GPT-4 model. You can specify that using OpenAI model name. And then you can just select a model from models OpenAI. Right here, I just selected the latest GPT-4, which is this one right here. And there you go. So we also have our Serper API. I was testing Grok. I'm going to make a video about that later, and also the langchain tracing API key and setting to be able to trace this using Langsmith. So now enter the page description here. Page, going to say page about castles. Enter the topic of the week here, castles in Germany. And then let's see how our agents start working together and making research. Here you can see that we have the first one is the market researcher who started to make some queries. The first query was searching the internet for popular Instagram hashtags, and then it got some results. Then it's going to search Instagram. It got some other results. Then it's going to try to open a page. Instagram, gonna mention some issues with Instagram later. I mean, with scraping using the langchain loader, but seems to be working correctly and doing its job. Gonna pause the video and come back once this is finished, just to review the final results. Okay. All right, so our run has successfully been completed. And here we have all the results. As you can see here in the logs, there are all the conversations of our agents among themselves. So they, of course, were talking to each other, trying to figure out how to solve our problem. And at least with GPT-4, it turned out perfectly. There were no errors. The only thing that happened at some point was that when we were supposed to open some pages, some search results from the Instagram search, our open page tool was not working because Facebook blocks regular scrapers like Beautiful Soup, which is the one that we were using. So if that were the case, you probably would want to use, if you wanted to crawl those kinds of websites and to make sure that the website is correctly crawled, you probably want to use more sophisticated way of scraping the website, like browser tools. I think that's a very good service for that. But other than that, it turned out correct, like perfectly. Here we have also, you can see all the conversations between our agents. Here, for example, here is the Instagram visual creator. And here we have that he produced this file right here. And then you have the Instagram copywriter, and he also, before crafting the Instagram story, I need to ensure I have a clear understanding. So he asked the question to the coworker, Instagram content strategist, and then the coworker answered something, and then he used that answer to complete his response. So everything seems to be working perfectly. Also, if you might remember, we added 3 output files for 3 different tasks. The first one was for the market research. So here is our market research report, which is a markdown file. And as you can see, you have everything that you require. And it's basically a report as though a human had made it, like your chief market researcher. There you have also the visual content description, which was the one developed by the visual artist. And these are the descriptions that you're supposed to enter into Midjourney or DALL-E 3 and generate your image. And then lastly, you have the final content strategy, which is also your complete strategy. So yeah, I mean, you had a complete team working for you. Let me just show you real quick here in Langsmith what was going on behind the scenes as well. Here we have all of the runs from OpenAI. And in our case, I wanted to show you, for example, how they open one of the websites, right? So here, for example, you can see that the action that they chose was open page, and they tried to open Instagram.com. However, the observation was your browser, you're using a web browser that isn't supported, basically just blocking scrapers. Here we have another action that was taken. Here, for example, it is the chat OpenAI here it is the market researcher again who tried to open the page iqhashtags.com, and let's see what observation he got. But the observation, remember that it'll be appended to the next prompt in the chain of calls, which would be here. So let's go all the way down to find that call. And here you see that the action was open page. He tried to open this one, and then you have here the observation, which is Castle for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and then you have all the contents from the page. And we have successfully created everything that we wanted to create. So congratulations for getting all the way here. You have created a crew, and now, I mean, we can totally just plug it into a graphical user interface or something like that. Now, this is of course not the best crew. We can of course improve it a lot by updating the prompts and changing the tools so that they are not blocked by scrape blockers, or maybe even experimenting with adding the tools to other agents as well. That's why it is important to be using Langsmith or some monitoring system like this, because it allows you to see exactly what your agents are thinking and what they're doing. So if you see that maybe sometimes they're entering a useless loop that is costing you like 5 or 7 API calls that you shouldn't be making, that's probably going to be saving you a lot of money if you're going to be sending this to production. This is of course not ready for production yet, but agent orchestration systems and CrewAI are both super new products and techniques. So I'm very happy to see that it's starting to work pretty reliably. And yeah, well, I'll be bringing you more news and updates about this. I'll be making also a video about how Grok works. I was testing this week, but didn't manage to make it work because of they only have a free tier so far. And with agent orchestration system, it is very easy to reach that rate limit very quickly. So I'll be making a video about that. Be sure to subscribe and tune in every week for the latest updates in software development related to AI and generative AI applications. Thank you very much for being here, and I will see you next time.